मालवीय जी को के चरणों में प्रणाम करते हुए और उनसे हम प्रार्थना करते हैं कि वो हम सबको इतना सक्षम बनाएं कि हम उनके बनाए हुए मार्ग पर आगे बढ़ते हुए अपने विश्वविद्यालय और अपने देश का नाम आगे रोशन कर सके। और उनकी कृपा, उनका आशीर्वाद में हमारे सब स्टूडेंट्स के ऊपर और हम लोगों के ऊपर सदैव बना रहे, जिससे कि हम लोग देश और समाज के लिए कुछ अच्छा कर सके। स्टार्ट फ्रॉम थैंकिंग डॉक्टर नेहा गुप्ता फॉर accepting my request to deliver a talk for our undergraduate students, especially for to give them a flavor of the research field of this new very interesting and important field, which is metal forms lattices. And I think that the student must be very much be interested in working in this field after listening Dr. Neha's talk. Just for the students, to give them a brief introduction, that Dr. Neha Gupta is currently a faculty in the Department of Metallurgy and Material Engineering and IIT Raipur. She pursued her postdoctoral research in Department of Aerospace Engineering, Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore, and PhD in Structured Ceramics and from Department of Material Science and Engineering, IIT Kanpur. And she has work experience of 6 years in teaching, 2 years in research, and 3 years in industry. She has more than 10 publications in international journals, book chapters, and international proceedings, and have been invited by various institutions to give the invited talk on her research field. Dr. Neha has recently been awarded Outstanding Woman in Engineering by Venus International Foundation and Bharat Gaurav Award by IIFC for her lifetime achievements and inspiration towards others. Uh, Previously, she has been awarded with the Performance per Excellence Award when she served in R&D unit of her industry job. She has been in a university topper during her BTech and MTech. Her current research area is on cellular structure materials as metal foams and functional graded armor systems. I think that I'm really very happy because I always look for some female speakers so that our students can really uh, connect them with themselves, because our institution is a women's institution, only female candidates are there. So for me it is very important that there is some female speaker is there who is able to talk to our students. Dr. Neha, a very warm welcome to our program, and I'm really thankful that you accepted my request to give your valuable time on Sunday, because I am forced to organize this program on Sunday so that the students are free and they don't have any classes. So if all the interested students who have any interest in the research can join this program freely. So that's my constraint, that I have to disturb the speakers on Sunday. Please, Dr. Neha, continue.
Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful introduction. Good morning,
Welcome.
students. So students, currently in this lecture, we will be discussing on films and lattice materials. So in material science, if we look at categories, right? So if we look at different materials, we broadly classify them as one is metals and alloys. Then we can work with ceramics. Next category can be polymers. Then can be composites. And recently, from the past 20 years, since new and new materials are coming into picture, there is several new categories added to it. For example, semiconductor materials. Uh, then you can do this smart materials and many more, depending on the thing. So now I'm focusing in this work on metals and their alloys. not know how many of you are working in the field of metallurgy, but even if you are not working on this field, still I think this lecture will be helpful for you. Uh, and what I'm going to do is, during our discussion on this forms and lattices, I will be giving you a brief idea what we are doing at NIT Raipur and what my UG students are doing. For example, if I'm telling them that you have to develop a form, so with what kind of ideas they are coming to me and they are doing their works, project works. Okay, so all those things we will be going to discuss. And if you look at metal forms, so what is being found, especially in India, I'm not telling about the across the world, because across the world the term metal forms is widely used, but people are only limited to research labs, also as well as in academic institutions. Only we are working with metal forms, not on industrial level or on daily life applications. For example, you will be aware of that we are using polymer foams in packaging, in household, all those different foams we are using, but not metal foams. But if you go outside India, people are taking these metal foams in their daily usage. Okay, so we will start with a discussion on how we are getting inspired by just looking at nature. And we are working on nature, and we are looking at those structures, and we are getting our inspirations how to develop these foams. Later, what are the different kind of foams and lattice materials, where you can apply them, how to produce them. During the production methods, we will be discussing on if you have to pursue your work, research work in your labs, how you can go through those kind of work, right? And finally, future applications, which is mainly metamaterials, right? So currently, if you work with material science, we always say that we use the term porosity. And if you look the word porosity, we say it is a kind of defect. This is a common term. But now, in this lecture, I will be saying that porosity is not a defect for me, it is an advantage for me. And why I'm saying that porosity is an advantage? Because nature is motivating me to work on a porous structure. Okay, let us look at some of the examples that we find in nature. So there are basically three types of nature structures that we will be discussing in today's lecture. One is sandwich structures, next one is density gradient structures, another one is tubular structure, which is having a cellular core. So let us first understand what are sandwich structures. So we are working with one is sandwich structures. Sandwich structures is you are having a top layer and then you are having a bottom layer similar to your bread sandwich. Okay, and in between these two layers, you are adding some core material. So this is your sandwich structure. So why this sandwich structure was being developed earlier? Let us say you are working with a bulk metal. This is your bulk metal. Let us work with aluminum, because aluminum is commonly used in market. In your household also you will find aluminum metal. So if you work with bulk aluminum, let us say its weight is some X gram. Okay. Now, if rather than using this bulk material, I'm using only two plates like this. So I'm turning my bulk material to this two plates because I want to take the advantage to reduce the weight further. So what people have done initially, to decrease the weight, they wanted to use just two plate structure. But the problem was that now if you're taking these two plates and you are applying some load on this structure, something like this. Okay, you are applying load to this structure. So what will happen? It will get easily bent like this. Your structure will get easily bent like this. So it means its bending strength is very poor. Though I'm decreasing the overall weight, but the bending strength will decrease and also the overall stiffness will decrease. So what was the solution to it? To introduce a core material here. So now in between these two plates, this plate and this plate, they have introduced a center material. This core material is generally a foam, very low weight. We will see in coming slides why we are saying it is a low weight. So this core weight is not increasing the weight drastically as compared to your this bulk material, but it is giving a support to this top and bottom layers so that you can increase the bending strength and you can increase the stiffness as well as you can have lower weights. Okay, so this is the advantage of using sandwich structures. So this is one structure that we will be discussing. Another structure is density gradient structures. So density gradient structures are during my lecture, you can anytime unmute your mic and you can discuss if there is some doubts. I do not mind. Okay. So density gradient structures currently people are generally working with functionally graded materials. Commonly known as FGMs. So in density graded materials, what we are doing, suppose this is your structure and let us divide this structure in three halves. In first half, let us say your weight is very high. Let us say 10 grams. This is the mass. Okay, here you want a weight, let us say of 50 grams, mass of 50 grams. And here you want again weight of, let's say, 1 gram. Okay, you want to change the density across a single structure. Those kind of structures are termed as density gradient structures. Clear? And you will appreciate as you are changing the density in these three halves, obviously their function will also change. So in a single structure, you are changing the functionality. So many people, they use the term functionally graded materials. All right. So this is the second category of materials that we will be discussing. Next material is tubular structure, tubes. So let us say you are working with a pipe. This is a tube. And this tube will be having some core material inside it. So these three natural structures we will be discussing, and we will see how nature is intelligent enough to manipulate the structure to get a particular functionality. Right? So iris flower, if you take the leaf of it, it shows a sandwich structure. This is your top plate, dark gray. Okay, this is your top plate, this is your bottom plate, and in between this you are having a core. Okay, and this core, if you look carefully, it is spongy like structure. And this spongy like structure, we are calling it as foam. All right. So nature is taking care of porosity. It is using porosity to its advantage to develop a leaf. Because what is the property of a leaf? There are different kind of weather, summers, winters, springs, and all those things. Winds are blowing, sun is there. So this particular leaf, it has to take care of all the different kind of heat, pressures, velocities, and it has to resist it. And this kind of structure will help this leaf to get that kind of property. Along with this, what other property we will get? Because of this spongy-like structure, one is structural strength. Another one is you can pass fluid through it. So if the leaf or the plant has to pass its nutrients, this porous structure will help in passing on those nutrients. Okay, so two different property advantages you are getting just by manipulating or just by taking care of the porous structure. And this is a cattail leaf, cattail plant. Okay, so here there was a top plate, bottom plate. In between this, you are having a foamy structure. But here, rather than a complete structure, you are having this kind of beam. So in cattail leaf, so this was our sandwich structure. So in cattail leaf, what we are doing? There is a top plate, there is a bottom plate, and our core is this kind of thing. So these kind of structures are known as I-beam structures. If you belong to mechanical background, you will know what are the different uses of I-beams. Okay, same again, I-beams are used to please remember sandwich structures as well as I-beam structures. They are used to develop materials, those are low in weight. That is the main advantage of using a sandwich or I-beam structures. So again, in cattail leaf, nature is using this kind of porous structure. You can find this small porosity inside this structure, okay, to give a particular function to this leaf. Okay, now let us look at animals. This is the skull of your house pigeon. Okay, and if you carefully observe the microstructure, you will find this thing. So here again, it is a sandwich structure. This is your bottom plate, top plate. In between this, you have some porous structure or I-beam structure. And look carefully, these two layers, if these are top plate, bottom plate, and this is your top plate and bottom plate for the next partition. So in the top structure, the porosity is different, and in the bottom structure, the porosity is different. So what we are doing, we are engineering our porosity. Nature is engineering the porosity to give a particular function to a material. For example, if you're working with a bird, first thing the bird has to do, it has to fly. And for easy flight, its body weight has to be very less. And how to decrease the body weight? Make the structure porous, hollow. Okay, but if you completely remove the material, there will be no strength. So the strength enhancement, how you are doing? By creating this kind of beam structures or struts. Okay, so as we move forward, what we will see, let us say this is our material that we want to develop. And in this material, if these are my pores, okay, so rather than using the term pore, I will use the term cells. Okay, in engineering term, I'm representing pores as cells. Now, this kind of pores, it can have different shapes. It can be circular, it can be triangular, rectangular, square, different kind of shapes, or hexagon also. Right? So simply what I can do in a given structure, if this is my overall structure, I can arrange my cells or porosity like this. These are my square cells. Okay, or you can use triangular cells or hexagonal cells. And the boundary, this boundary, we will call it as strut. You can compare it, for example, you are constructing a building. Okay, so this is the bottom floor of your building. And this is the first floor of your building. Now you can easily appreciate that there might be some beams that are connecting first floor with your bottom floor. Okay, why? To give a particular support to the system. And in this building, this is the same strut that I'm talking about. To give a particular strength, you are creating some beam-like structure. And this one, this is another beam. And in my term, this is my one single cell. I hope it is clear to everyone. Right. All right. So in pigeon, one thing is in one layer you will find one kind of cellular structure. In another layer there is a different kind of cell arrangement. Now let us look at the head of your owl. The skull of your owl, if you zoom it, you will find this kind of structure. And again, it is different as compared to your pigeon structure. Here the cell, those are arranged, they are completely different as compared to that of your pigeon, because the functionality of an owl is completely different as compared to your pigeon. Owl has a different hearing capability also. And you are manipulating your material so that you can change how the sound is affecting or how the sound is entering your head. Okay, so if you look at the skull of an elephant, it will have different kind of structure. So like that, nature is taking care of different kind of structures. It is manipulating the structures to give a particular function to that particular creature, whether it is plant, whether it is pigeon or any other mammal. Till now we have discussed on sandwich structures that are existing in nature. Let us look at density gradient structures. So in density gradient structures, we will take example of tree. Okay, so let us take a tree, and what happens? I have sown a seed, and now the seed has sprouted, and now the tree is growing something like this. And with time, the tree will take this kind of shape, and slowly as the tree will grow, its bark will change like this. Okay, so what is happening? This area, the bottom area of the tree, it will increase. Why it is increasing? Because with time, the height of the tree will increase, and where the load will go? At the bottom, at the foot sole. So what tree will do? Tree will increase its area so that it can support its top structure. Now what will happen if you are taking a palm tree? Okay, that this palm tree, the bark of it, you will find it is completely straight. Okay, from bottom to top, it is not taking this kind of shape which I have shown. Rather than it is taking this kind of shape, and here are the leaves. And why it is not getting this kind of trunk? Reason being, this tree is manipulating its cell structure. Let us look at it. Okay, so this is the cell structure of a young palm tree when the height is not very huge. And this second example is the cell structure of a grown-up palm tree. So you can compare when the palm tree is young, or the top area of the palm tree. These are your struts. Compare this strut dimension with the strut dimension here. So when the tree gets old, means you are working with the bottom one, bottom zone. So this area is old, this is your new area, right? Because the growth is happening in this direction. So I'm comparing this structure with the new structure or young structure. So what palm tree is doing, rather than increasing the size of its trunk, it is increasing the size of its strut or boundary of the cell. Here the boundary is less in the young plant, and here the boundary is more. So like that, it is accommodating the weight, and it is not increasing its overall structure. That's why the palm tree is like this. Okay. I hope it is clear. What is density gradient? So here in the top area, density is different. Okay, because the strut size is small. This is the boundary. And here the density in the bottom area, the density is more. It means the strut dimension is more. This boundary area is more. Clear? So these are the examples of density gradient. So nature is already taking advantage to create different kind of structures. Okay. Now this is example of tubular structures. So now let us take example. There is a glass of water, and in this glass of water, you are sipping it using some straw. This is your straw. Now you will take this straw and simply bend it. What will happen? The straw will take this kind of shape after bending. But imagine if rather than taking this hollow straw, you are using some core material, spongy material inside it. So again, the stiffness will increase of the structure, and instead of getting this kind of bending, it will go back to its original form. If you give the bending, it will go back to its original form. Means you are increasing the stiffness of the structure by simply introducing a core material. And the core material that the nature is using in this kind of milkweed plant. Milkweed plant, those kind of plants in which you find that white milky stuff coming out. Okay, so this is your tube. This is one boundary of the tube. This is another boundary, and in between that, it is stuffed with some spongy core material. So this core material, what will happen if you try to bend the plant stem? It will not be completely go off. It will try to take on that load and it will survive. Okay, and another thing that this porous structure will help you is in transporting the nutrients from one part of the plant to the other part of the plant. Okay, so nature is already taking advantage of this porosity in creating its own structures, and not only this, your human bone. Okay, your human bone is itself porous. Now imagine if your bone was not porous, what will happen? You will not be able to sit straight or stand straight. You will simply droop because your body weight will be so huge. Right? So what nature has done? It has created a porous bone. And along with that porosity, which has decreased the body weight, what else bone is doing? Now in between this, your blood can flow, bone marrow can flow. Right? So though in the field of material science, when I was doing my engineering, I was told that porosity is a defect. But if it was a defect, then why nature is using it in almost all of its creation? That is my question. Okay, so simply my comment to this is, if I am able to engineer my porosity, if I'm able to engineer my porosity, I can simply enhance the strength of the material. When I talk about engineering of the porosity, it means whatever cells I am creating. For example, this is a cell. So let us say I'm working with one kind of cell structure, it is giving me some property. I can always modify the another layer of cell like this, or let us say like this. Right? We see it in engineering applications. In many of the civil applications, they are taking care of different cell shapes to get a particular strength of that particular construction that they are doing. Same thing we have to do in our smaller scale, on the scale of our materials. You have to arrange your atoms somewhere here, something like this. Okay. If there are any questions related to whatever we have discussed, we can take it now. And next we will.
Actually, we have requested the sorry. Let me. We have requested the student not to interfere in between because of this video is on YouTube.
Okay.
So they will ask the question at the end only.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So now we understand that porosity, we have to simply engineer it. And now people have engineered this porosity and they have developed engineering cellular solids. Okay, so there are two categories of engineering solids. One is honeycomb structure, another one is foam structure. So in honeycomb structures, there is a regular arrangement of these cells. For example, this is regular arrangement of hexagonal cells. Here you are having regular arrangement of square cells. Here you are having regular arrangement of triangular cells. But in comparison with foams, foam is having irregular arrangement of these cells. So this is one of the major differences between honeycomb structures and foam structures, right? So what we have done, we have engineered the porosity, and now people have developed two categories of materials. One, they are calling it as honeycombs, another as foams. And these honeycombs, they are having a regular arrangement of cells. And in this, you are having irregular arrangement. And another thing that I want to add here is these foams are 3D structures, means that it's having a length, width, as well as depth. Okay, and this honeycombs, it is 2D structures. Now, when this honeycombs, you turn them into 3D. When you turn your 2D honeycomb structures into 3D, we call it as lattice structures. Clear? So this is the major difference between foam and lattice materials. Foam, irregular structures; lattice structures, regular structures. Clear? All right. So you can follow this reference. I have taken this slide from work by Lorna Gibson. She is faculty at MIT and she is working with cellular solids. So I have taken these examples from her work only. So you can refer this reference to understand more on this one. All right. So now let us, we have understood that foams is of two different types, honeycombs, which can be turned into lattices in 3D, and foams. Now, what kind of property advantages we get when we work with this kind of cellular solids? Okay, these kind of solids, we are terming it as cellular solids. We have engineered our porosity to develop a cellular solid. And the property, first thing is, I'm getting a very good stiffness along with low weight. We have already discussed what the advantages of sandwich structures. Okay, so due to this good stiffness and low weight, you can use it in structures of sandwich panels, or for example, you want to develop some boat where buoyancy is required. So those kind of devices or structures you can develop using these kind of cellular solids. Another thing of advantage of using a cellular solid, it can absorb a large amount of deformations. So what happens, let us say I want to develop a car bumper. Okay, so what is the role of a bumper? For example, if my car crashes to some structure, the load which is getting transferred by that crash to my car body, it should be taken by that bumper. Bumper should get destroyed during a crash process and nothing should be happening to my car. So it means the bumper should absorb all of the energy. So this kind of large energy absorption can be easily obtained using a cellular structure. How? Let us try to understand it. If this is my, let us say I'm working with square cells. These are my square cell body. And let us say I'm applying a compressive load. It has been crashed. Okay, so what will happen? During deformation, when the load is transferred from this surface, it will take this path, and in this, when it takes this path, this side body, it will crumble. Okay, So what happens? If this is the boundary of the cell, during deformation, it will crumble like this. It is taking load like this. Okay, so due to this, this whole structure can take larger, it can take large energy it can absorb in comparison with if I was doing the same compression on a bulk material. Because in bulk material, everything throughout the structure is changing. But here, load is getting transferred to get this kind of cell modification. Okay, buckling. So this is another advantage of using a cellular structure. So due to this advantage, you can use it for energy absorption devices like bumpers, helmets, or energy dampeners. Okay, so this is how the compression test is being performed. And you can see here how the cells are crumbling. Okay, and due to this cell crumbling, you will observe a flat area when you do the compression test and record the stress strain plot. So this, if this was not there, the compression load, rather than taking a flat line, it will simply increase. But now it is taking up more energy. So this is the meaning of this plot. Another advantage of using a cell structure is using the same material, you can develop a low as well as high thermal conductivity materials. What does that mean? In coming slide, we will discuss on two different kind of cell structures. Okay, one will be open cell structure and another one will be closed cell structures. And once we will go with that topic, you will understand when we were working with open cell structure, you can easily conduct temperature or thermal conductivity is very good. Though the material is same, you are taking same material here and you have adjusted the cell in one case as open, in another case as closed. And if you're working with open cell, you can increase the conductivity, but the same material can be made as insulators if you're working with a closed cell structure. Okay, so just by designing your cell structure, you can make your material conductor as well as insulator. Now, since you're working with cellular structure, porous structure, obviously the surface area that the material is occupying is much, much huge. So obviously when the surface area is more, you can use the material for catalysis purposes. Right? So it can be used for applications such as catalysis. And also it can be helpful for noise reduction because in the pores, or if this is your foam, which is shown as a car body here. Okay, in this foam, in the gaps, what is entrapped? Air is entrapped. And this entrapment of air within the material will help you in getting a good noise reduction for the structure. So these are some of the common applications depending on the property that one can achieve using this kind of cellular solids. So generally speaking, a person will go with development of cellular solid if along with the structural property, he want to introduce some functional property. For example, I wanted to get a good strength or stiffness, but along with lower weight. I want to have a good structural property, but along with catalysis property. If I want to have a good thermal transport, but along with good structural strength. So if you want to have some functional property attached along with the structural properties, people generally go with cellular solid material. Okay, I think this is clear. Now, whatever different materials we have we have discussed in the starting of the lecture, polymers, ceramics, metals, composite, all those things. Okay, you can create foams out of any kind of material. But in my lecture, I will be discussing specifically on metal foam because I belong to metallurgy field. Okay, and this kind of metal foams is also known as met foams. So what advantage I'm getting? Rather than getting a 100% material, I'm taking solid metal only up to 25% volume. Rest is air. So very light structures can be developed if I'm working with metal foams. And along with this thing, what exact other property I'm adding? I can change my physical property, mechanical property, thermal, electrical, acoustic, whatever property you're working on, just by designing the cell. Okay, and another property of metal foam is they are cyclable as well as non-toxic. See, I think you are able to see this polymer foam which is in my hand. So this polymer foam has come with a packaging. Okay, and it can take any kind of shape. It is very light in weight. But the problem with this kind of polymer foam is it is not environmental friendly. It will take decades to simply decompose. Okay, so currently, what I always tell to my students is whatever research you are doing, whatever work or studies you are doing, please work in a direction that is not harmful for your environment. Okay, so you have to always choose those materials, those are environmental friendly. So that's why I'm saying that no doubt polymer foams will give you very good property enhancement. But if you are not working with a biodegradable polymer, please do not go with that. Metal foam is a substitute and very good substitute for this. Right? Okay, so this was what I was telling about open cell and closed cell foams. So in open cell, generally people categorize the cell structure in two types. One is open cell and another one is closed cell. If you look at the first diagram, it is showing open cells, and if you want to allow air to pass through this structure, air can go through the structure to the other end. But in the second structure, which I'm saying closed porosity or closed cell, you cannot pass air or any kind of fluid from one side to the other. Right? So in open cell, your cells are open. Okay, I have a structure also. I will show you. So I'm holding a open cell structure with me. Okay, though it is regular structure, it can be irregular structure. If this is a regular structure, it is a lattice materials. So this is a open cell structure that I'm holding in a hand. Okay, and this second structure, it is closed cell. Because if this is your material, how the closed porosity looks like? Yes, ma'am.
Are you showing something?
Yes, ma'am.
No, but we are seeing your slides only.
Okay, video is not there.
No, we couldn't. Only slide was there.
All right. So in open cell, let us compare two different materials. First, let us work with closed cell because it is easy to understand. So this is my 3D model. And if there was some porosity inside this model, it will be inside this one. Okay. And if I simply section out my material, let us say I'm cutting my material here. So how it will look like? It will appear at this closed cell. Okay, I can see the other half as closed and the front part as open, but actually it is closed. All right, but in open cell, you can, the porosity is such that the fluid can pass through this 3D structure. Okay. So that's why when you are able to pass the fluid, that's why you can get the advantage of thermal conductivity. And here in the closed cell, since getting entrapped inside the structure and there is no fluid flow, that's why we are calling it as that this kind of materials can be used for insulators. Okay, so you have designed your cell and you have made as open so that fluid can be allowed to pass. You have made it as closed so that you can get the advantage of insulation. So now, depending on, let us say in this plot, on x-axis you can see the type of porosity, open porosity and closed porosity. And in y-axis, the different kind of applications. So till now we have discussed that your material can be used for structural applications and you can introduce some functionality in that. So let us start with structural applications. Structural applications, load-bearing components. If you want to develop a load bearing components, then always it is recommended to work with a closed cell, not a open cell, because in closed cell, the strut size, the dimension of the strut or the boundary, it is very good. Okay, so more load the structure can handle. Now, depending on the application, let us say you want to develop a biomedical implant in which you want to introduce some tissue growth, but not throughout the structure, only on the surface. So what you will do on the surface, you can use some open porosity and inside you can use some closed porosity, and those kind of materials are termed as partially open cell structures. Now, if you want to develop filters which are doing catalysis or heat exchangers, obviously you have to pass some fluid. There is no role of using a closed cell structure. So for that, you are recommended to use open cell structure. So depending on what is the type of your application that you are dealing with, you have to choose whether you have to go with a closed cell structure or open cell structure. I hope it is clear to everyone. So to understand on this metal foam, I have a video. So there is a company and they are developing metal foam. This video is related to that. So this is a sandwich structure. So this is a top layer, bottom layer. In between that, you are having a foam structure. And this kind of sandwich structure, they are using it for developing outer body of high-speed trains. So to develop high-speed locomotives, first problem is you have to decrease the weight. And now we are saying we can get good stiffness along with lower weight by using this kind of cellular structures. And another property of your metal is it is recyclable. Next, you can weld those structures. Polymers, they cannot be welded, right? So due to welding property, metal foams are a very good substitute for your polymer outer skins of your automotives. Right, so this is the outer body. This is the whole of the body that is being developed, and this is the sandwich structures. They have arranged it. And simply by using a sandwich structure, they have drastically decreased the weight so that the speed enhancement can be achieved for this tree. So this is showing the weld. Okay, you can simply join the two structures by simple welding technique, joining technique. So now it is clear in our heads that we can use foam material to construct very huge structures. Means we are not limited to work on smaller size materials. Lab scale mein okay nahi hai. You can go with the industrial scale. That is okay with us now. Okay, so this is how the foam is being created. So we will see when we go with further lecture is by simple heating this material, it will turn into foam. Very lightweight, so you can use for buoyancy applications. So in this example, they are taking this plywood and they are checking whether this cup will break or not. Next test they will do by replacing this plywood is a common packaging material, right? So they are trying to replace the packaging material with a metal foam. So now you can, along with buoyancy devices, you can use for energy absorption, for example, bumpers, or for food packaging also. After food packaging is done, you can simply recycle the material. So vibration control. Okay. So in this video, you might be able to appreciate the different kind of properties this foam is able to give us. Now, if you want to develop this kind of cellular material, there are some properties that you have to keep in mind. Firstly, obviously, is the kind of material. For example, if I want to work on some metal, I can take aluminum, I can take titanium. Titanium is good for developing human bone replacement parts. Okay, so aluminum will have different property as compared to that of titanium. So first thing is the property of the solid, aluminum or titanium. Those properties, your final property will depend on. Next one is how much porosity is present, how much cells are present in a given volume. That is important. That will change your final structure. Which kind of cell size and shape you are working with. Okay, small, for example, 1 mm diameter cell size or 4 mm diameter cell size you are working with, or whether you are working with square cells, triangular cells, spherical cells, those will change the final property of your material. And again, whether you are working with closed or open cells, they will also change the final behavior of your particular foam that you are working with. Now let us look at the different production methods that you can work on if you want to develop this kind of metal foam materials. So you can take advantage of, you can use vapor techniques, liquid techniques, solid techniques, which is powder technique, or some ionic technique. So all the techniques, whatever is present, whatever setup is present in your lab, just you have to take that setup, you have to simply modify it slightly, and you can prepare your metal foam. All right, so we will start with our liquid metal technique. In liquid metal technique, obviously we are taking our initial metal. For example, if I am taking aluminum, why I'm focusing on aluminum? Because aluminum is one of the common material that gets recycled. Aluminum cans you are using. Okay, there are different window structures that are made up of aluminum. So a lot of aluminum is already available with us as scrap. So you have to simply remelt it, and after remelting, you can develop it in the form of foam. So in liquid technique, we will take liquid aluminum to develop a structure. Now in this liquid technique, you can use again different techniques. One is direct technique, indirect technique, powder technique, casting methods, and spray foam. Now I seriously love the first two techniques, and I will rename these first two techniques in my own terminology. Foaming by gas injection. So first technique is foaming by gas injection technique. And I will say my name to this is soap bubble technique. वो बचपन में हम लोग soap bubble बनाते थे ना. So this is that soap bubble technique. I have to simply blow air to create a foam. And my next technique is foaming with blowing agent, which is indirect technique. So my second technique is foaming by blowing agents. And this technique I will say this is my cake baking technique. Okay, so what I will do, I will simply bake a cake with you now, and I will simply blow air in a soap solution to develop my material. Okay. So let us start with our soap bubble technique. So imagine this is your container in which you have placed your soap solution, and with this straw you are bubbling air. So what will happen? The air, it will rise as gas, and it will take this liquid along with this, and on top of the surface of this container you will get some foam, and here you are using some conveyor belts to simply collect those foams. Clear? Now, how I have modified my setup? Rather than taking a soap solution, this is my aluminium solution. Aluminium in the form of liquid. I have melted my aluminium metal and have placed it in this container. Using some this kind of injector, I am purging some gas. Your gas can be oxygen, CO2, hydrogen, nitrogen. Only thing that I have to consider is whatever gas I am using, it should not react with the metal that I am working on. Okay, so I have to just simply check the non-reactivity of the gas with my material that I am working on. And for easy mixing, what I am using? A paddle wheel. That paddle wheel is moving and it is distributing my oxygen gas in this aluminium mill. So this oxygen bubbles, they are rising up in this volume and they are carrying away the liquid along with that. And here on top of it, I'm developing foam. Now, if you remember, when we were developing that soap bubble, after some time, that soap bubble simply collapsed when it came in contact with air. Okay, and that happened due to the drainage issue. Okay, let's try to understand. I have taken a container. In this container, I'm taking a soap solution. This is my soap solution, and the bubbles are rising up. So the bubbles are rising up like this. So this is how I'm getting foam. In between the foam, what I am having? This liquid. In between foam, I'm having liquid. And the foam, as the foam is rising up, the bubble will get destroyed or collapse. So bubble collapse happens due to drainage of liquid. Drainage of liquid. Liquid is the soap solution. So liquid is draining up and the bubble is expanding and it is completely getting collapsed. So if somehow I can prevent or I can work on drainage of this liquid, then I can hold my bubble here for a longer duration till I can solidify this bubble solution. Okay, so what I have to do? I have to solidify this zone. But during solidification, due to drainage issue, bubbles are simply getting collapsed. So if somehow I can make this drainage stop for some time, I can hold the bubble for a longer duration till it is getting collected. For that, what I will do, I will increase the viscosity of this liquid. If I increase the viscosity of the liquid will stay here for a longer time in between the bubbles, and the drainage will be less as compared to normal drainage. Okay, so by simply increasing the viscosity, I can avoid collapse. Not avoid collapse, I can reduce or I can increase the time of collapse of these bubbles. Okay, now you want to collect the soap bubbles. So what you have done, for example, in the soap solution, you have added something so that the bubbles can stay on top of your container for a longer duration, and then you will simply cool it so that final whatever bubbles have been formed, they will get solidified, and you will collect the foam. Okay, so now here silicon carbide they have used as additives. Okay, so you can use different foaming agents. The gas that you are using is known as foaming agent. And the viscosity enhancer, we are terming it as viscosity stabilizer. So again and again, I will be using these two terms. Foaming agent, it means which is creating gas inside or which is creating bubbles inside my liquid. Viscosity stabilizers are those materials which are trying to increase the viscosity so that the collapse of bubbles can be increased. Okay, and the final structure that we get using this kind of methodology, which is gas injection methodology or direct route, is giving you closed cell forms. You will not get open cell structures using this material. And one of the common issue in this material, you can call it an issue, but you can take it as an advantage, is you are getting a density gradient here. For example, in this zone where you have placed your conveyor belt, you are giving cooling treatment, right? So when you are giving cooling treatment here, look at the bottom surface. In the bottom surface, there are less number of bubbles as compared to that of the top surface. So what kind of structure I am getting here? Density gradient structures. If this is my structure after cooling, so here I am getting lot of bubbles. Here the bubbles are slightly less, and here the bubbles are more or less. Gradient structures. So these structures, gradient structures, are not always useful for a given application. Depending on application only, you have to check whether you want to go with gradient structures or not. Because what will happen if you will apply a load for a general application, the load distribution in the bottom side will be different as compared to that of the top side. So the material will behave very differently, not homogeneously, and you will not get the optimum property, whatever the material should have given to you. So if the application demand that you want to develop a gradient structures, then please go with this technique. Otherwise, people try to avoid this technique because you develop a non-homogeneous structures. Non-homogeneous structures, okay, let me give you one example to understand difference between how the property changes for a homogeneous and non-homogeneous structures. I will give you two comparisons. Okay, I am taking example of a regular arrangement of cells. Those cells are square. So this is my material with square cell structures. In non-homogeneous, what I have done, I have placed my cells in random manner, something like this. Okay, so in non-homogeneous structures, my porosity is not uniformly distributed throughout the structure. Now imagine Rather than using the cell structure, these are your buildings. Okay, so this is your ground floor, first floor, second floor. And now you are walking in this floor. And you're walking in this floor. So what will happen? Uh,
Dr. Neha, one student is asking a question in the chat, so if you can explain it right now.
yes,
Hello.
sure.
Uh, they are one is asking that can we change square cell to circular cell or any other kind of cell?
Yes,
That
that thing we have to design.
that I think
That
that you have taught right now. I think that you have discussed well before, na? But the
yes,
students
yes.
have asked that. Okay, we will consider it at the end. You just continue. I will ask the
Okay.
question at the end. Okay, you continue.
Okay. So now you are working in a homogeneous structure in the second floor and in a non-homogeneous structure in the second floor. Distance between these two beams is much higher as compared to the distance between these two beams. So if a second person now comes with you here, which structure will crumble more? This structure, non-homogeneous structure. If you are taking more load on a non-homogeneous structure, it will simply crumble because you have created a structure which is random. But same two people, they can walk easily. This area can take up the load, but this area, it cannot take up the load. Okay, so here, wherever you will place these two people, there will be no change, no structure collapse. Okay, so this is the advantage of taking a homogeneous structure. That's why we always say in engineering that we want to develop a homogeneous structure because whatever final strength we will achieve, it will match with the theoretically means whatever calculations you are doing with your pencil. Okay, so whatever calculations you have obtained, theoretically, it will match with your experiment results. Okay, because of uniform load distribution throughout the structure. Clear? But it will not happen in non-homogeneous. If you are taking the case of non-homogeneous, these two will not match. Clear? So it simply means if I'm working with a density gradient structures and if my application demands uniform distribution of load throughout the structure, this structure is not favorable for me. This structure will be favorable for me only when in this zone I have to apply a different kind of load, in this zone different kind of load, here I have to apply different kind of load. I hope it is clear. So this is the main drawback of using this kind of technique, which in my language, it is a soap bubble technique. Okay. Now next is our cake baking process. In metal form language, it is El-Porras process. So what we will do, let us try how we will bake cake. So you will take a container. In that container, now you will add some liquid, whatever flour liquid you have to add. Okay, now in this flour liquid, what you have? You add baking soda. Why you are adding baking soda? Because baking soda releases CO2 gas. Okay, so during cake baking process, my baking soda, it will act as a foaming agent because it is creating gas. Clear? So same thing we are doing in this technique. So we have taken, this is our furnace. In this furnace, I have placed my crucible. In that crucible, I have placed my aluminium. In aluminium, I have added some viscosity enhancer so that I can get some viscosity. And now I am using some mixing propeller. Now I am adding in this second B figure. You can see they are adding titanium hydride as foaming agent here. So what will happen? At some temperature, this titanium hydride will release hydrogen gas, which will create bubbles inside your liquid. So in figure number C, you can see bubbles are being created. and slowly your whole container, in that whole container, the foam will be seen. These bubbles will be seen everywhere. Earlier, due to drainage problem, you were getting a density gradient inside the structure. But when you are using this kind of second process, which is a indirect route of generating a gas, you will get a very good uniform distribution of porosity inside your material. Okay, as compared to earlier technique. Please note, we are saying as compared to your initial technique, which was your gas injection technique or soap bubble technique. If you are using blowing agent, here we are using titanium hydride. Okay, here we were using oxygen gas. Okay, so just like baking soda, you are adding titanium hydride. In soap bubble technique, you were blowing air. Okay, so here you were getting density gradient in this structure, but here in comparison with gas injection technique, the density is much more homogeneous, but not throughout homogeneous. Okay, but better than as compared to previous method. So now we are in second stage. Now the problem with this, even people are facing the problem, but still they are not able to achieve a very good uniform distribution of pores inside our material. Still there is a problem with this one. So currently people, they are trying to uniformly control. Means I should be able to get uniform distribution of my pores throughout each and every corner of the structure, because then only I can match my experimental property with my theoretically predicted property. Okay, so when I gave this, discussed this thing with my students, so my BTech students, they told me, "Ma'am, हम लोग इस पे काम करना चाहते हैं." So I have told them, "बताओ कैसे करोगे?" So that thing I want to discuss with you. So those students, I have given them some brief knowledge, and they have identified that, "Ma'am, if we are able to know how the viscosity is changing, then obviously we can control the pore velocity. And if we are able to control the porosity velocity, then we can know where the pore is exactly located at a given time." Right? So they have identified some of the variables. So let us again go back with the cake baking process. Now, what is my structural requirement? Okay, why I'm giving you example of cake baking. If you let us say you have gone to bakery number 1 and bakery number 2, and in both of the bakeries you have ordered fruit cake. You will be amazed, the same fruit cake from one bakery, it will taste differently as compared to the fruit cake from the other bakery. Reason being, the type of foam that is being created in cake from bakery 1, it will be different as compared to the foam that is being created in the bakery number 2, though the ingredients are same, though the raw materials are same, just because the pores are distributed differently at a given, in a given cake, the taste will be different. Because what happens, how the taste is being developed, your this jaw, it crunches the material, so you are applying a crushing force on the material, which will help you in developing a taste in the material. So what happens, let us say in one material, in one cake material, you are having this kind of regular arrangement of cells, square cells, or whatever cells you want to have. In another cake, they were not able to achieve a good distribution, so they have achieved something, this kind of cells. So in first case, the crushing force, when your jaw will chew it, okay, the crushing will be different as compared to this one. So that's why your taste will be different for both of these materials. Okay? Okay. So going back to this one. Now you want to develop a very good tasty cake. For tasty cake, obviously now you know that your structure should be homogeneous. All right, so you have taken a material. So first you should know what is the size of the container, height, length, width. Okay, so this thing you should know. Then only you can calculate how much raw materials should be there and how you have to control it. So I have told my students, first check which kind of crucible you want to work with. उन्होंने decide कर लिया. Right. Now they told, let us say, ma'am, aluminium, some 6,000 series they started working. Okay, so let us say, for your sake, let us say we are working with aluminium. So they have poured aluminium and they have calculated the height of this aluminium. So now they know what is the height in this container of this aluminium and what is the weight. Okay, the basic properties, physical properties of the aluminium, its solidification temperature, melting temperature is, everything is known with them. And now what they have to do, based on whatever understanding we have done, we have to control the viscosity so that baking soda, when it will release CO2 gas, that CO2 gas should be able to be present inside this one. So let me share their work first. Okay, so let us say they want to understand how the bubble is rising. If they are able to know what is the velocity of the bubbles, then they will know at which location in a given volume the bubble will be present at a given time. Right? So they have chosen this mold dimensions, which is 15 by 15 by 15. Very simple design they have taken, and they have assumed that they will work with spherical bubble. Okay, so you have to assume something. And using Stokes' law, they have tried to understand that for this particular dimensions, given if they want to have pore size of 1 mm, what should be the velocity of that bubble? So using that, they have identified what is the velocity of the bubble. So this is the mold, this is the container. Okay, so 15 by 15 centimeter. Using Stokes' law, initial equation, now they know the velocity with which the bubble might be rising. That CO2, when you have added baking soda, where the CO2 bubble will be there at a given time. And they have identified that if you have given 30 seconds of solidification time, with this kind of bubble velocity, the bubble will rise up to more than 1 meters, which is much higher as compared to the height of the container. So what will happen? All the CO2 will go off and nothing will remain inside the cake. When nothing will reside inside your cake, then you will not get a porous structure. So they told, ma'am, सारा bubble तो बाहर चला गया, हम लोग उसके अंदर कुछ रख नहीं पा रहे. So that definitely what you have to do, you have to increase the viscosity so that the bubble velocity, which is moving up, it can be reduced. Okay. So from literature, now they know which kind of different materials they can add as a viscosity enhancer. So they have chosen calcium. Now physical properties of the calcium, you already know from literature. Then using simple calculation, they have tried to understand that if they are, let us say, if you want to add 1.88% of calcium to enhance the viscosity, what will be the final viscosity? So they have identified that in that given volume, if you are using aluminium and if you are adding this much amount of calcium, how much viscosity you will achieve. And whether using that viscosity, whether the bubble rise, again you will correlate this viscosity with the bubble rise velocity. Now you will check with that bubble rise velocity whether you are able to decrease the velocity of the bubble or not. So all those calculations they have done. Okay. So and again we were surprised then when we were adding foaming agent. For example, when you add a baking soda, okay, again it will change the viscosity of the material. Not only the addition of calcium, which is changing the viscosity, when you add a foaming agent, because you are adding a second material, viscosity will again change. So again, you have to calculate what is the velocity change with whatever material additions you are doing. So all those things they have done and they have tried to understand how much amount of viscosity enhancer one has to add in a given volume, means in a given volume size of a container for aluminum material. So they have now given a statement that if you are adding, let us say 2.79 volume percent of calcium for your given volume size, then you will get a very good uniformity inside your material. Or if you change from calcium to alumina, if you are choosing some other viscosity enhancer, how much addition you have to do. Okay, so all those different kind of calculations they have done. Please note, this is done by, all these studies are being done by BTech students, okay, UG students. So I'm just sharing with you so that you can also know that these are very simple calculations that one can do. You have to take simply what is the problem that you work on, you have to find the relation, and then you have to simply correlate. Okay, so like that they have done several studies, and they were able to understand, for example, this is their final result, that if they are giving solidification time of only 8 seconds, then only they will get a very good foam. Otherwise, all the material, otherwise you will get a non-homogeneous foam. So this was the overall conclusion of their studies. Okay, I hope you are able to understand what kind of study work you can do, and your main idea behind this study is to get a uniform distribution of porosity throughout a given material volume. All right. So we have discussed till now two techniques. Now coming to the third technique. In this technique, we are taking powder metallurgy route. So powder metallurgy route in materials engineering we use when we want to develop a very complex structure. For example, whatever is the final shape I want to develop, so that's why I want to go with powder metallurgy route. So again, my raw ingredients are same. By base material, which is aluminum powder. In that aluminum powder, what I have to add? I have to add viscosity enhancer. I can add or not, because I'm using powder technique, I can skip the viscosity enhancer also. Important ingredient is foaming agent, that titanium hydride. Now you will simply mix these two powders, metal powder and foaming agent. You will compact it, simple powder metallurgy route. And after compaction, you will keep it for heating. Okay. And what will happen when you will keep this in a furnace at some temperature, the foaming agent will release gas. When it will release gas, you will develop this D diagram. You can see the foam is being created after the release of gas when you have heated this kind of powder compact. I'm not sure because I was told that you are not able to see my video because I'm having samples with me, which we have developed using this powder metallurgy route. Okay, so this is the result by Jay Bernhardt. He's a professor who is working again on field of foams. So these are the results. So what study they have done? For example, now you are in stage C. You are working with C diagram. You have kept your compacts, powder compacts or pellets inside a furnace. Now after that, you want to study how the expansion is happening. So Jay Bernhardt, they have done some studies and they have plotted this kind of plot. So here you can see at the time of 0.5 minutes, right? This was your initial expansion, and slowly at this point, at expansion of around 40 mm, okay, you are getting this kind of structure. And here somewhere you are getting a collapsed pore structure. So now what happens when you are developing any kind of pores? So this is the volume. In this volume, you are having some pores, and the property of a pore is you are having gas in it. The property of gas is gas always expands with time. Okay, so as you increase the time, this gas bubble will expand. It will increase in time, and slowly this second gas bubble will also expand, and after some time these two gas bubbles will merge as a single pore, and the pore size will increase. So this is same thing which is being shown in this last stage, which is studied by J. Bernard. So in the last stage, the pores has been collapsed because they have given more time to that. So like this, they have identified what time they have to give so that you will get a homogeneous distribution of porosity. So these are some of the studies that you can always perform in your labs. Okay, so this was using your powder metallurgy route. Next one is your general casting methods. In metallurgy, generally people work with casting of metals. Okay, so in casting of metals, this kind of route people use when they want to develop open porosity. Okay, till now, whatever methodologies we have discussed, they were giving you closed cell forms, and now we understand closed cell forms are being used when you want to have them for applications that are structural in nature. And you want to go with open cell pores when you want to have functional materials, for example, catalysis, heat transfer, all those things. So if you want to work with those kind of application materials, then you can use casting methods. Let us take these methods one by one. Very simple methods I will show you that you can do anywhere. First one is your investment casting of polymer foams. So what I will ask you to do is take a normal kitchen scrubber. वो आता है ना plastic का scrub आता है, which is having some cell or some porous structures. Simply take that. Okay. So they have taken this scrub polymer structure, and they have prepared a sand slurry. You take a sand, mix it with liquid, and add some binder so that sand can hold on to each other, and simply pour that slurry. So slurry will fill up these gaps in between this porous polymer. Okay. Now you will simply heat this overall structure. So what we know about polymer? Polymer is CH bond. Okay. So since it is CH bond, at some temperature, it will form CO and hydrogen, H2O, and it will simply vaporize. So you are heating it so that whatever polymer was there that you have used, it will simply go off. So what is left? Only sand structure. And now your sand structure is porous because it has taken the gaps that were present in the polymer. You have removed the polymer. So what is left? Polymer was, wherever there was a polymer, there are gaps now. Okay, so now you are left with sand porous structure. Sand is a ceramic material, and this ceramic material, you can use it for casting. You will simply pour your liquid metal in this one, pull it down, and after that, simply using hammer, get rid of the sand. And since because it is open porosity, you can simply remove the sand from throughout your material. Very simple technique. Okay. So this is the open cell structure that I'm talking about. And it is very easy for you to remove sand because the structure is through. Okay, you can pass fluid from one side to the other. And now, second one is, till now we have discussed on foams. Now, if you want to develop lattice structures using casting method, what you can do? So this is a lattice material. It is having regular arrangement of your cells. All right. So one technique to develop this thing is your 3D printing technique. Let us see how 3D printing technique will work. So this is a big 3D printer, and it is preparing a construction lattice structure. Okay, so this is a construction lattice structure. Now in your lab scale, how this thing works, let us see one video on this one. Okay, let me check. So this is your laser 3D printing technique. So your target is to develop a metal lattice structure. So this is the base material. On this, the structure will be created. On this platform, you have placed your base material on which the structure has to be created. Here is your metal powder, brown one. So you will prepare a CAD model in your computer and laser is coming. So what you have done? So what they will do? They will rise this platform and the powder from this platform will be taken to this one. So one layer of powder will be sprinkled on this one. And then laser will come and it will heat the powder. Okay, and wherever the laser will move, the metal powder will melt and it will create a structure. Okay, so that structure we are developing here. So laser is moving, it is heating the powder. Wherever the heating is done, the structure is being created. Next layer of powder. So slowly what you are doing, you are, once one set of laser heating is done, again one powder layer is being created, again you sprinkle, allow laser to move. Okay, layer is being put, now you will heat it. Then again layer is being put of powder, then again you will heat, and final structure once it is ready, simply remove the material, excess powder. Okay, so the best part is you can reuse this metal powder again and again. Okay, so on this nut platform, we have created a structure, lattice structure, regular arrangement of cells. And later you will see inside this big structure, there is a small structure also. So whatever complex structure you want to develop, 3D printing gives you best solution. Right? So a structure inside a big structure. Okay. So using this 3D printing method, you can easily achieve development of metal lattices. Now the problem with this technique is the cost of these kind of 3D printers, it is in crores. Okay, and usually people have very less access to these kind of facilities. So what we have done in our lab, we are using a indirect method of developing these kind of metal lattices. So what my students are been doing, they are using advantage of this investment casting. Please again remember this casting method. In investment casting, there was a polymer template. In that polymer template, you were adding some sand or some any other ceramic, and then you have to remove the polymer, and then you can cast the structure. So now what we will do, so there is another BTech group that is working on this one. So they have tried to work with sand method, in which the ceramic was sand. In another case, they were working with plaster of Paris. Then you can use wax also, and you can use NaCl also. And what the students have found is it is best to use NaCl ceramic, because what happens if you are working with sand, you have to tap it off. But if the structure was very big and complex, then at the center of the structure, the sand could remain. But what happens if you're using NaCl? NaCl will give you, now, anything you want to say? Okay. So if you're working with NaCl structure, you have to simply take water, dip the structure in water. So wherever there is NaCl, it will simply get removed by dissolution method. So this is the polymer template that the students have prepared using general 3D printing machine. And a polymer 3D printing machine, it comes within 50,000 rupees. Okay, so you can purchase that 50,000 machine and you can develop a polymer template in that. Now you can fill these pores with some ceramic, let us say NaCl. Heat the structure, get rid of the polymer. What will be left? Only NaCl. Then you can simply cast your metal using this technique. Okay, and the final metal lattice can be developed. Okay, so these were some of the studies that the people have developed using polymer structures.
Dr. Neha,
Yes, sir.
sorry to interrupt, but students have some other assignment after that, so
Okay.
we have to finish it within 10 minutes.
Okay,
Uh,
then I can go with the future applications directly.
okay, okay. Thank you.
So I have already shared these slides with you. So what you can do, because of the time's constraint, you can go with those slides. And if you're having some doubts, we can discuss it later on. Okay. Now, let us see where people are working currently, future applications of these materials. These kind of lattice structures, people are trying to develop machine metamaterials for mechanical applications. Now, okay, first let me give you example, then you can try to correlate with the general what I'm going to say. So, machine metamaterials are those materials which can change into any predefined shape and have some machine-like functionalities. For example, earlier, if I want to have a latch system, this was the latch system that people used to work on. But now they are using mechanical metamaterials. For example, in second diagram, this is your metamaterial latch. It is the same material, only you have created a lattice structure. In lattice structure, in each and different part, for example, here the cells is different. In another section, the cell is different. So you will see at different locations, they have simply modified the cell so that all these different functionalities for which earlier you have to use different components, they can be accommodated in a single structure. For example, here in this zone, they are working with this cell. Okay, so this is one kind of cell, this is another kind of cell. And when they applied force, so they have found the joint simply broke. And when they added a single layer of this one attached to this one, so even after application of load, the joint remained as it is. So like that, they have modified the structure so that the load can be handled using the same material. And in this video, you can appreciate how this latch is uh, taking care of this advantage. Okay. So all the functionalities of the latch using same material, you can simply change the functionality.
ये आपका मिशन म्यूजिक पर डॉक्टर नेहा, is it a music of your video or somebody else is unmuted themselves?
Ma'am, it was for this video only.
Okay, okay, sorry, sorry.
So in this video, you can see, but just by changing the cell shape, you can change the functionality at different areas, and same material can be used to give latch-like function. Right. So this area I was talking about earlier, this zone was getting broken, and just by creating a support cell structure, they are able to modify the mechanical properties. So these kind of structures people are currently working on. And if you want to give code to these structures, then they have also developed digital uh, latches. Okay, for example, you can look here. It is locked. Now you will enter a key and it will unlock. Let us see at the back what is happening. So these are the different lattices. Okay, cells. Okay, so this is how the code is getting transferred so that you can lock or open the latch. Okay, so these are some of the mechanical metamaterials people are working on using lattice structures. So I'm again focusing that I have discussed on metal metamaterials, but you can always work with other materials also. Okay, then one more example is for this field responsive mechanical metamaterials. So if you want to transfer load automatically, so this is a polymer lattice structure which is hollow in nature, and now they are infusing the structure. They are filling the pores using some conducting ink, magnetic ink. Okay, and now this is the load, and they want to transfer this load to some other place. And here is the magnet, and as soon as they will remove the magnet, just simply observe what happens. Right? So this kind of applications you can work on using lattice structures. Now this is the simple toy that we that we play with in our homes. So if you observe carefully, these are the different cells. This is a triangular cell. This is a square cell. This is a red one is a square cell, which is different as compared to the blue square. Okay. To a small ball. Okay, so shape changing materials you can develop by changing the cell. So this is your square that I was talking about. And this is one more example of foam material. So if you can take shape memory alloys, you can develop foam out of it. This foam can change shape, and they can also weld. You apply force, they will weld. So this is another example of foam material. There is a lot of noise coming. It was from my side. Okay. So that was shape-shifting material. And this is my last example to you. And these are known as origami lattices. Origami lattices, this is a simple paper folding technique in which we create lines on the paper and we fold across those lines and we create shapes of it. So what happens, for example, if I want to create some bone replacement materials? Okay, and general thing is I will print my 3D metal lattice as a bone shape and I will use it for that. But problem with that is if I want to have a tissue growth inside it, that one. So I cannot approach very center of the material which I'm working on. But if the structure was flat, right, then I can easily assess the center portion. So these are those origami lattices. Please observe this video carefully and you will appreciate you can prepare very complex structures, and though you are developing very complex structures, you can go into the inside of the material and you can change whatever changes you want to do. So these are the origami lattice structures, regular arrangement of cells. This is the bone replacement part, medical implant. And they have printed it. These are laser 3D printed parts. And on this you want to have, this is the laser printing technique. You can directly print the part. And on this you want to have tissue growth or whatever you want to do. Okay, this is another implant. Right. So if you want to assess the internal surface, and let us say you want to grow some tissue and understand how that cell or tissue is growing at the center of this lattice structure, what you can do now? You can use paper folding technique. So in a paper, you create some lines using that simple Japanese technology. You can create structure by simple folding those paper across those lines. Okay. So same thing we have to do here. And we have to prepare this kind of complex structure. Okay. So initially it was flat, and after application of some load, you can create this kind of complex structures. Right? Simple folding of the structure, lattice structure, to create a complex part. As soon as they will release it, it will take a complex shape. Okay, so these are some of the areas in which people are currently working on in terms of lattice materials. For foams, people are currently working with shape memory alloys and lightweight shape memory alloys that can be self-weldable, and if any other particular functionality you want to give it.